Yes, I think the situation which we face today is very different from the situation that Terence Gregory and Gwyn Morris have been describing. I suppose you could say that when I arrived in Coventry in 1966, the last stage of the rebuilding of the city centre was just about to start with the development of the Hertford Street shopping precinct, which was the kind of final jigsaw in that particular scheme of things. And that was carried out between 1969 and 1972, something like that, when Hertford Street, which was a through road when I first came to Coventry, and the buses used to come up Hertford Street and go down Hertford Street, was closed to vehicle traffic, and the bridge was filled in by the Westminster Bank. And the Ravenseth development on the west side of Hertford Street was carried out, and that completed that particular part of the scheme. And in fact, I think that was probably the break point between the post-war rebuilding and the present day. There's no significant development in the city centre taking place since the Hertford Street scheme was completed. There has been little bits added to it here and there, but no major development. And really that also brings about the period when Coventry reached its height in population terms. For example, in 1971 we had 338,000 people in the city, and since that time there's been a general reduction in population. We're now down in this year to 312,000, and people are leaving the city at the rate of 2,000 a year, a net migration of people going out of the city at 2,000 a year. 1986 we shall be down to 200,000, and if nothing happens to stop it, by 2000 we shall be down to 291,000. So we're facing now a period of reduction in population, whereas the period of time Mr. Gregory and Gwyn Morris have been talking about, of course, there was the expansion of population. And the people that are leaving are mainly the people who are leaving the city to go to find work. They're going to the south of the country, where there's more employment, to the Bristol area and this kind of area where they feel they have a better chance to get a job. And of course they're the working people of the working age group, and they're leaving behind the older people, the older age group. So Coventry's becoming an older city. It's got more old people in it at the present time than it's ever had in terms of proportion. So those are the kind of problems that set the backcloth of the present scene. But the main problem facing the council is the problem that faces the country, which is unemployment. And if you think back to 1971, there was just 6,000 people unemployed over the whole of the city. And today we've got 26,000 people in the city unemployed. That's 18% of the working population. Now, a lot of people said that that's not a real figure, and that the real figure would be something like 25%. And I think that probably there's something in that. So you see that the situation between the post-war, immediate post-war period and the situation today is very different. And now the council's main task is to protect existing jobs, to prevent existing firms going out of business if they can, and to attract new industries into the city, and that's their main task that faces them today. And they're setting about this in a number of ways. One of the ways in which they've tried to prevent existing firms going out of business is to make grants available, bearing in mind the limited money that is available, particularly with the present central government restrictions on local government expenditure. The amount of money that's available to assist firms is very limited, but nevertheless, wherever possible, firms are encouraged to take advantage of the grants that are available, to build up their base, to protect themselves, to give themselves a new outlook on their industrial development. And wherever possible, we're trying to assist them in that way. The second way probably is the bringing in new industries, not bringing in new industries, encourage industries to develop in Coventry, new industries develop in Coventry. This is a much more difficult task because you get into the area of the new technologies. And the Science Park at Warwick University is probably the best example of the efforts being made in this respect, where some of the things that are being developed at the Science Park are being done in conjunction with the university, and hopefully the creation of new industries which will bring on new jobs. Because unless that can happen, the future of the city is pretty dismal. because unless you can maintain the population base, maintain the workforce base, then all the developments we want in the city are not going to occur. But coming on to the city centre, which is the main subject we're talking about, as I say, following the completion of Hertford Street, for a variety of reasons, I think probably the central area reached a period of consolidation when not a lot really happened. The existing central area kind of reached a point where it didn't grow anymore. I think it had probably reached that point at the right stage, and in effect it's not overshopped. Coventry's not overshopped. You don't see in Coventry the large areas of empty shops that you see in a lot of cities in the country. If you won't go around Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, these cities, you see that they have developed probably beyond their capacity to maintain their shopping. In Coventry we've not had that problem, in the city centre particularly. You'll notice that it has been very rare that the shop has remained vacant for very long. There's a long list of people who want to open shops in the city centre, and so the problem of overshopping is not one that we've had to quarrel with. But the feelings being abroad in the council that perhaps Coventry is perhaps getting a little dated in its shopping centre, and it needs to have a fresh image. And for many, many years, the council have been trying to attract a second departmental store, and this has always been a policy in all the plans that Mr. Gregory has talked about, that we must have a second departmental store. It became a kind of thing with Coventry.
This is to complement Owen Owens.
That's right, to complement Owen Owens. And the main problem in getting a second departmental store has always been to find the right site for the departmental store, because they're very, very kind of frail things, departmental stores. They only go and develop where they feel they're going to trade, obviously, and they want to be right at the centre of things. And so I found it was completely useless suggesting sites on the periphery of the shopping centre. They just wouldn't come to that. And so the only way that we were going to get a second departmental store in Coventry, and if you accept that's the first aim, you can argue about whether we need one, but if you accept it, we do need a second one. Is to find a site at the centre of the shopping centre. And so with this in mind, about 2 years or so ago, we again looked at the possibility of getting a departmental store in the centre, and we entered discussions with Debenhams, and after initial discussions they did say they would be willing to come to Coventry and develop in Coventry, provided the right site was available for them, and they particularly wanted a site in the heart of the precinct. And so we looked at the precinct, and the site which seemed to be most suitable for them was in Smithford Way, between Boots and Marks and Spencer's, taking in the multi-storey car park, the back of the West Orchard multi-storey car park.
It's quite a big site.
Quite a big site. And since that time, over the last 2 years, we've been drawing up, Debenhams have been drawing up in conjunction with us, a major scheme for a departmental store. There are plans available, which you see here. The present proposal, which is just being finalised, would envisage a 6-storey departmental store with the first 3 floors being of trading, with 3 floors of car park on top of that, some 600 odd spaces, replacing the existing multi-storey car park. Taking advantage of the levels of the site, there will be an entrance from Broadgate through what is now the Leofric Hotel. So you'll be able to approach the store from Broadgate through an arcade of shops which cuts through the existing Leofric Hotel.
You're going to demolish part of the Leofric?
Adapt part of the Leofric, yeah. The ground floor of the Leofric. And then that will bring you into the, as it were, the first floor of the departmental store itself, or the development itself on Smithford Way. You'll be able to get in from the precinct, of course, but this will be the major development which will take place in the city centre. It's due to start about this time next year, and will be completed in 1988 or 1989. Take about 3 years to develop. So that is the major development. We see this as absolutely essential if Coventry is to maintain its role as a sub-regional centre and to compete with the adjoining towns in Warwickshire and further afield, Birmingham and so on. There is a problem because modern day shopping trends are for more out-of-town shopping centres where people can get surface level car parking. The style of Cannon Park District Centre is very, very popular. At the present time, investment is very much attracted to shopping development, not to industrial development or any other kind of development, I'm afraid, much to our regret and sorrow, but nevertheless, people want to put their money in shopping developments. And we've a whole series of schemes which have come in over the last 12 months or so for out-of-town shopping development. Now, the danger is that if those proceed, or a number of those proceed, it would take away all the trade that the city centre, or the majority of the trade that the city centre enjoys. So we're trying to put back into the central area some new attraction to maintain general attractiveness, to maintain its role as a sub-regional centre, and to ensure that it continues to be, to provide the right kind of service for the people of Coventry. You have to bear in mind that a high percentage of the people that do come to and use the city centre come by bus. They haven't got cars or don't use their cars for shopping. Not everyone's got a car, particularly the poorer people in the north of the city, live in the north of the city. And these facilities must be there to meet this requirement. On the other scheme which you mentioned is on the north side of Broadgate, where we are hopeful that a scheme there will be developed of a smaller arcade of shops, two arcades of shops, a Y-shaped arcade of small shops, suitable for trades linked to the tourist industry, to the tourist trade, taking advantage of the people that come to the cathedral, being borne in mind that certainly up till this year, some 600,000 people a year come to the cathedral. A lot of Americans, not so many this year unfortunately, I think they're about 40% down, but nevertheless that's only probably a small hiccup in the general trend. But the difficulty has been that the tourists come to the cathedral, they arrive in Priory Street in their coach, they get out of their coach, they go into the cathedral, have a look around the cathedral, pop into the cathedral bookshop and then get back into their coach and go up to Warwick or Stratford or wherever. What we're trying to do is to get them to stay in Coventry a little bit longer, to have a look around Coventry, to start buying things in Coventry, and more important, to like Coventry so much that they'll come back for a second visit and when they'll look at the city centre as a whole. So the development on the north side of Broadgate is specifically designed to try and attract the tourist to the city centre. There are a number of other schemes which are presently being considered in the central area. There's a new supermarket development in Queen Victoria Road which will start in November of this year, which will provide a retail outlet for particularly the lunchtime shoppers, food outlet that is. That's being developed by the co-op on the Queen Victoria Road scheme. So we're very much geared up to trying to get new development taking place in the central area to maintain Coventry's role as a sub-regional centre. This is what we're aiming to do.
What future plans have you got for housing?
Well, the housing problem which is facing the city and facing many of the cities in this country is absolutely horrendous actually. Because as you know, virtually no council house building now takes place. We've got at the moment 17,000 substandard houses in the city. Those are 17,000 privately owned substandard houses.
That's apart from the council housing?
Apart from the council housing. The amount of money which is made available for housing is very limited by central government because of their economic policy. You have to remember that many of the houses that were built in the interwar period and just after the war will, over the next 30 years, be really nearing the end of their structural life.
They had a life of 25 years.
So in 25 years' time there's going to be or less than that probably, a major housing problem I think in the city, and one which is going to tax all the ability of the then councils to deal with. certainly got to be a major rethink, I think, on housing. Unfortunately, present government don't seem to want to do that, but that will have to happen. There is going to be a major problem.
And presumably that the changes in the buses, making less of them, are going to affect the city centre.
Yes, we get to see the full effects of the deregulation, or rather to assess the full effects of the deregulation order. Certainly the present signs are not very good, because after the 26th of October the bus service will run when it's profitable for them to run, as I understand it. If you've got a route that's making a profit purely in commercial terms, then it will continue to run. If you've got a route that's not making a profit, then it won't run unless the city council or someone makes a subsidy to make it profitable. And the amount of money which the council will have to subsidise bus routes is very, very limited. And so the present signs are that there will be a considerable number of existing bus routes will not run outside the main hours. In the evenings they won't run, and Sunday services will be almost disappear. That's right. So these kind of things will affect the viability of the centre. We've not yet fully assessed how that will work, because to be honest, no one really knows what's going to happen after the 26th of October. I mean, you could have 10 buses going up the Folsall Road, 10 different buses, I mean, 10 different bus services. It doesn't mean that because that's one profitable route you're going to have one company running it. Under the system you can have 10 bus routes. So that is a worry, and we've certainly got to keep our eye on that and see what that means. I think that one of the points is that people always regard the centre today as the centre is always going to be like that. Where of course, as Gregory says, the thing is continually evolving, and if you talk to people, as we've done, about the city centre recently, and ask them what they think's wrong with it, the first thing you get is that there's a lot of vandalism and violence goes on in the city centre, particularly after night. I don't think there's any real evidence to support that, really. I think it's just a view that's grown up and then rumour that adds on to it. I don't think there's a brawl going on in the city centre every night and so on, but undoubtedly it's a problem.
Friday and Saturday night.
Friday and Saturday night, yes. The other thing is that, of course, it's of its type when it was built, and it's no good comparing the present city centre, Coventry, with the Redditch Centre or any of these. Yeah. We have looked at the possibility of enclosing part of it by putting a roof, some kind of plastic or a glass roof on parts of the building. The cost is phenomenal, as you can well imagine, with the width of it, to support these kind of structures. So it'll be a gradual process from now on, as I see it, of redevelopment, which will bring the shopping centre up to date as trends change and as things happen. And some parts of it will stay as it is for many years, and other parts of it will develop much easier, much quicker.
I think this is important because in a city centre you need interest, you need variety, you need to be able to identify different areas easily, and in a way Coventry has had some advantages from that and some examples of change needed over the years. For example, the closure of Hertford Street, which in fact was the point when Broadgate was no longer a crossroads, had one particular character. Smithford Way Market Way was as wide as it now is because of the interim proposition to make it a road. So that effectively, in some areas in Smithford Way, it's really at the moment too wide for pedestrian comfort between shops on opposite sides. If you compare that, for example, with the City Arcade, which is relatively narrow, but therefore is busy and intimate, you can see the difference. Now, the new shopping development of Debenhams will in fact correct that by narrowing down Smithford Way again and making the whole of that area more intimate but linked to a bigger covered development.
Yes.
And then in the early days, the shopping precinct, upper precinct, particularly as built, wasn't easily accessible on the upper deck because there were only stairways. Now that was eventually improved by two of the stores having escalators inside, which allowed you to get up on an escalator. That didn't help the disabled particularly. And therefore, more recently, the putting in of the ramp from Broadgate onto the higher deck. But all this is indicative that you do need areas of different character, which are attractive, can be identified, but all the while you have to be studying human behaviour and whether effectively you can improve in various ways, because any shopping centre is competitive in its region.
I was interested to hear Terry talk about the mall. I've just come back from Milwaukee, and there's a lot of redevelopment going on both in Milwaukee and in Kansas City, where I was too. But there, they do have malls, which they're linking up all the buildings. You go in a building, as one might say, like Owen Owens, and you can walk through that and then across the bridge of the street into the adjoining store and to another store and another store. And so it goes on all the way around the city. And I was very, very impressed over there, so was my wife, at the cleanliness. The floors in some of these malls there, they probably go about 5 stories high, and you have the balconies all the way around. But the floors are so clean, you can eat off the floor. And the fountains, we were having trouble with this fountain in Shelton Square. For the simple reason, I think, that you can't have sort of these jets of water going too high, and we notice even now the slightest wind and it's sort of putting the thing out of action. Now the sort of fountain that I saw, which is probably getting away from the troubles that we're having there in Milwaukee and in Kansas City, it's a big circular affair with a whole lot of jets. It still gives the impression of a fountain, but it overcomes all that trouble with the water being blown over the people, and it's quite amazing.
So you were very concerned with street decorations or street furniture? Street
furniture. Now, funny enough, in Kansas City, I think there are more fountains in Kansas City than any other city of the world, and they're absolutely amazing. And the street furniture they've got there, Winston Churchill and his wife in bronze, and you just put a dime in there and it gives you Winston Churchill giving his last speech. It's terrific. But all these things are bronze, and whoever's paying for them, I just don't know.
Yeah, we just haven't got the money that obviously...
We're very poor, I think, here. Very poor.
I think in respect to that we'll visit other cities, I think it's interesting because wasn't Coventry actually, maybe we could talk about the fact that Coventry is actually used as a model, wasn't it? It was actually one of the first, wasn't it one of the first cities in the country to have a shopping precinct, I believe, am I correct?
Yes, I think it was Coventry and Rotterdam that they were competing as to who would be finished first, really.
And there's actual cities in Canada which have actually been modelled on the idea that was first pioneered sort of in Coventry.
Yes.
But in this world, very little is really new. I mean, if you go back through civilizations, admittedly, the kind of traffic has changed. But there are town centres all over the world that incorporate pedestrian segregation principles. It's a question, I think, of how you apply that policy in your particular area. I mean, covered pedestrian ways are evident in Chester, but not quite in the same way as a total pedestrianised area. But there are continental cities, historical ones, which had the Grand Place in the central area, much of which was pedestrianised.
I think there's a revolution going on in shopping at the present time, which we don't really know where it's going to lead us, because, as I say, the commercial interests certainly say that what people want is the out-of-town shopping centre, and that there's a demand, which evidence in Do It All and all these
Something the size of an aircraft hangar.
something the size of an aircraft hangar, with ample surface level car parking, and that there's still an unsatisfied demand in Coventry for this type of development. In fact, that is where there's money available to carry out that type of development. And we've got evidence of this potential demand coming in every day with any site that becomes clear, factory site, or whatever, where the usual thing that arrives on our doorstep is a planning application for an out-of-town shopping centre.
Must be the size of the things.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they will all be built, but turn it round as a planner though, is it right that we should stop people having this facility if this is what people want? Is it right that we should say no, you must come to the city centre and park in a multi-storey car? You know, we talk about public participation. We have to balance this up, I think, and say to ourselves, well, where does the balance of interest lie? It's not always easy to listen to public opinion, because they tell you things you don't want to know. You know, this is the problem in planning, I think.
Doesn't that mean, therefore, that one of the challenges is to compare the facilities available in a city centre with those available wherever the out-of-town centre is built, out in the fields? Right, yes, they there can have everything on one floor level, probably. They can provide probably car parking at ground level, and a lot of it.
And free.
Generally free. But we have to compare then what can a city centre offer that is not there.
In addition.
Now, in addition, it must be access to other more specialist facilities.
Yes.
So it hinges very much then on the complementary kind of shopping that you can offer in support, possibly more specialist than would be in an out-of-town centre. You must, in the central area, I'd have thought, be able more particularly to cater for those who don't have cars. And even now, there must be a high percentage of people, even though public transport is in a revision period, that do rely on it. And bus connection with out-of-town centres is often not that good.
No.
So again, there might be a specialist market for those kind of people.
Yes.
And of course, people come to city centres to do other things.
In shopping.
That probably is why it should be beneficial to have the relocated public library right in the city centre shopping area. And it is to think how there can be good access to other specialist facilities linked to the shops.
Yes.
And that could give, you know, other reasons for keeping city centres alive.
Yes. Yes. It's very important to get this balance.
What about the new factories? There's been lots of small factory units, and it seems that the redundant factories are the ones with the old sorted sloping roofs. They're being demolished wholesale now. Do you feel that
Well, particularly over the whole of the West Midlands area, where that area has been affected by the recession in the manufacturing industry, which over the last 5, 6, 7 years has been tremendous. You've got these vast areas of worn-out factories, in effect, buildings that no longer are suitable to accommodate modern production techniques. And they are so old and they're so costly to adapt that it's better to demolish them and build afresh. It's cheaper to do that, you see. Now, the problem is that many of the older factories are in the centre of the city, or in the central area, the central parts of the city, It was right railway triangle. There's quite a lot of them. But when you come to rebuild, firms want to move to the edge of the city, to greenfield sites where they've got plenty of space, where the environment's better, where it's more attractive for their customers, where if their customers come, they can take them to a leafy site where there's trees growing around, rather than bring them up Coleshill Road where there's not a tree to be seen, say. So there's this pull going on as well, where there's some industries wishing to go out of the inner city to the edge of the cities, where sites perhaps are cheaper, easier to get to, access is better, more space, room for expansion, and so on. Which presents a problem what's left behind in the older areas of the city. And you get large areas like the Coleshill Gasworks site, where there is a problem of how to use that site to its best use in the future. That site is zoned for industry. We're hoping to get new industry onto that site, which will provide jobs for the people in the surrounding area, particularly the immigrant population that presently lives in Coleshill. We're hoping that that will come about, but that site is competing with many, many other sites in the surrounding area, which have good access, are greenfield sites, better environment, and so on. So the problem is, how do you persuade industry to take that site, take that site in Coleshill, when it could develop at Warwick or somewhere where it's got much better environment?
There has been developments like Reed Street there specifically. There's the very small.
These are the small unit factories which the City Council has built quite a number, which is really a part of the process of trying to get new industry into the city, developing in the city, where a whole series of schemes are carried out, where in effect small-scale industry is provided with support of various types to enable it to start and subsequently develop to a point where it's at a stage where it can take off and no longer requires support. And you provide these small little units which have joint facilities. Many of them have joint facilities. They don't have to provide their own accommodation for offices or their own accommodation for canteen or things like shared accommodation, which reduces the cost of those parts of the development and helps them to become established, and eventually, hopefully, they will move out of those smaller units into larger units and begin to employ more people. Yeah. It's just one of a number of schemes which have been tried out in order to try and get employment moving again. But it has to be said that the unit factories only provide a small number of jobs compared to the massive job loss which has happened in things like British Land and Herbert's and GEC and these places, where automation, of course, was added to the problem by less people being wanted to produce the same amount of goods. A vast problem.